After a couple of years of finally finding himself his very own Mrs. Claus, Santa runs into quite a few problems when Jack Frost intercepts his workshop. And that's why today in Flick Summary, the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause. The final installment to the Santa Claus trilogy opens with Principal Newman, also known as Carol or Mrs. Claus, teaching a class to a large group of elves who don't really seem to be interested in learning about math and would much prefer if she'd tell them about her love story with the bearded man himself, Santa Claus. She decides she doesn't care about teaching and begins telling the kids about her personal life. We then cut to a flashback as she excitedly recalls the story of her experience at the North Pole. During the flashback, Carol is heading over to the emergency room, led by Santa's helpers, of course, about to give birth as Mr. Claus and the elves are rushing through a delivery as fast as possible. However, they are met with disappointment when it turns out to be a false alarm.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
They return back to Santa's place where Carol is overwhelmed over Santa's lack of attention. All the while, Curtis, now the #1 elf, is trying to constantly be ahead of schedule before Christmas time, scolding Saint Nick whenever he hasn't crossed something of the to-do list.
Have you even checked this list once?
I have perused it.
Upon seeing that Santa is not at all ahead of schedule, Curtis is frustrated and asks his boss to help him out.
Help me, help you, help you, help you, help me. Help me help you.
Fed up, Carol storms out of the rooms and leaves to get some fresh air, no longer standing the pressure of the responsibility and sacrifices that come with being Mrs. Claus.
It's your call, buddy.
Finally, noticing her poor mood, Santa chases after her and asks her what he can do to make this all better. She finally asks the impossible and tells her husband she wants her family to come home. Curtis, of course, is apprehensive about the idea given that they follow a strict code of keeping Santa's real identity a secret. But Saint Nick is a family man and he is sure he can bring the in-laws to the North Pole and have everything be hush-hush. After all,
What do they say about Santa?
Yes.
that's the spirit. Poor Santa deep down inside must be like.
My anxiety has kept me up for over 50 hours.
Later, Santa has a meeting with a council of legendary figures, which of course includes Mother Nature, Sandman, the Easter Bunny, and a bit of an unwanted presence, Jack Frost, an eccentric, power-hungry character that would do anything to have his very own day.
You guys finally woke up and are giving me my own holiday.
Take a chill pill.
And of course, if he is familiar, it's because you probably watched Only Murders in the Building. And if you didn't, you can watch the summary on the channel. Now, back to the story. Given that he is constantly conspiring against Santa, the legendary figures want to remove his powers as a punishment for trying to take down the bearded man. Begging for mercy, Jack Frost asks for a second chance and promises to help Santa get ready for Christmas just in time.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Although apprehensive, Saint Nick concedes him the second opportunity, but tells him that if anything goes slightly south, he will be the one who will take the blame. All the while, Santa decides to have a venting session with the council, telling him how overwhelmed he is with Christmas and the baby that is due any second now. Feeling sympathetic for poor Saint Nick, the council suggests he takes the escape clause, but he declines, claiming that that is way too drastic. We'll get to what the escape clause means in just a moment.
I'm so damn confused.
At night, Santa pays a visit to Laura, his ex-wife, Neil, her brand new husband, their daughter Lucy, who is like a niece to him, and of course, Charlie, his son. He plans to spend the night to prepare to pick up his in-laws for the trip the following day. At the house, the family begs Santa to allow them to come on their journey to the North Pole, which he not so excitedly agrees to, but only because Lucy's hugs are magical. Aww. All the while, the elves are preparing the North Pole to make it look like Canada and hope Santa's in-laws don't find out about his identity. While Curtis is busy working as hard as he can, Jack Frost gets into his head, forcing him to tell Frosty Dude about what the escape clause actually means. Okay, so to put it simply, there's a snow globe that if Santa touches while saying that he doesn't want to be Santa anymore, he will go back to the moment he turned into Saint Nick himself all those years ago. Back to Santa, who is now going by Scott Calvin in order to keep appearances with the in-laws, is getting ready to pick up Carol's parents along with Sandman. The plan is to get them to fall asleep, with Sandman's help, throw them in the slide, and they don't have to know a single thing about their journey or how they got there. Just a few moments later, Santa, Neil, Laura, Lucy, and the in-laws have made it safely to the North Pole.
And we tagged along!
Hey! Hey! Hi! Oh, it's tall people!
Of course, the elves are more than ready to pretend to welcome the family into the land of maple leaves, Canada.
Welcome to Canada!
Stereotypes. The entire family goes to explore the strange land that Canada is and the toy factory Santa works at, which I guess is not entirely untrue. Of course, Lucy runs into none other than Jack Frost himself, who of course feels absolutely offended when Lucy has no idea who he is.
I'm a legendary figure too, with enormous power in my own right.
Okay, chill.
Once he regains his cool, he asks her if she would want to be one of his elves, which she very politely declines.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Now that Santa's mind is otherwise occupied, Mr. Frost decides to take matters into his own hands and sabotage the entire present-making process in hopes of replacing Santa and getting everything behind schedule.
I think you're evil!
Without a second thought, Frost basically turns the entire factory operations upside down, while the elves struggle to keep it afloat. Of course, Carol's parents are not at all impressed with the failing gear, an absolute disaster the workshop appears to be. In fact, they're so unimpressed that Carol's dad begins to think that she is being held at the factory against her will. That's a little intense, but I guess it's sweet of them to worry so much. As everything quickly falls apart, Santa is one step closer to losing it and even tells Curtis he can't handle a single piece of bad news, otherwise he might have a full-on breakdown. Of course, it doesn't take too much for Santa to smile again, once again, as one of the elves bring him a broken toy and he brings it back to life with ease, quickly putting a smile back on his face, much to Frost's annoyance. Impressed with the North Pole, Lucy asks Santa if she can see his snow globe collection, as they are her favorite thing in the whole wild world. He agrees to show her and even tells her the secret code to gain access to the room. Unfortunately for the pair, Jack Frost witnessed everything and remembers exactly what to press in order to break into the room. Right after Santa and Lucy leave the room, Frost breaks in and steals the snow globe that activates the escape clause in hopes of making the bearded man accidentally claim it. Once he leaves the room, he runs into Lucy, who calls him out on his bad actions.
You've done a terrible thing. You'll be on the naughty list for the rest of your life.
Lucy quickly tells on Jack Frost to her parents, which makes no sense. She should have told Santa himself, but whatever. Of course, the Batman retaliates by freezing her family as he locks her inside of a closet.
Sorry. I mean, you are horrible, but I shouldn't have said it so loud.
Back home, Santa is desperately trying to hold himself together and save Christmas, accidentally ignoring his in-laws and Carol, further upsetting her and her family. She even says that she doesn't know who he is anymore. Wow. Ouch. To be fair, Carol had to beg for his attention to put up the star on the tree, which he eventually does, but immediately destroys the tree afterward. That bit was entirely Jack Frost's fault, but the family can't tell. Right then and there, Carol and his in-laws can't hold it any longer and become visibly upset over Santa's action and constant lack of attention. Sometime later, Santa decides to grab a little bit of fresh air while Frost accompanies him.
Ugh, as if.
He obviously takes this opportunity to his advantage and gives him a present, the dreaded escape clause snow globe. Poor naive Santa falls right into his trap, as Frost basically coerces him into saying that he doesn't want to fill in the role of Santa anymore.
I wished I'd never been Santa at all. Happy?
As you may have guessed, the escape clause immediately activates and we travel back in time, 12 years earlier to be precise, right around when the first Santa Claus was released.
Time travel!
We once again witness the moment Santa fell down Scott's roof and leaves the red suit behind. This time around though, Jack Frost is the one who catches the suit and turns into Santa.
Well, that's just great.
We then flash forward 12 years later and Santa is now, well, Scott Calvin, the very same one he was prior to becoming Mr. Claus himself.
Time travel!
There, he is visibly disoriented and confused about his current life. He visits Laura, who is now divorced from Neil and Charlie, who apparently hates him now. Apparently, Laura and Neil have gotten a divorce, and he has taken Lucy to see Jack Frost's show over at the North Pole. Almost instantly, everything clicks, and he remembers his role as Santa once upon a time. He decides to take a casual trip down to the North Pole and confront Frost about his actions. But as soon as he gets there, he couldn't believe the scene before him. You see, Mr. Frost decided to completely eliminate Christmas as a time of presents and gift-giving, and went on to turn it into a completely egomaniac fest of Jack Frost. In fact, if the parents want their kids on the nice list, they have to actually pay to get them on there. Geez, that's a little too much, huh? Scott then confronts Frost about the meaning of Christmas, but Frost doesn't care about anything he has to say at all.
Get this through your head. You're not Santa anymore. You're just a guy who smells like a cookie.
However, our boy Scott had a secret weapon under his sleeve, a recording pen. He managed to tape Mr. Frost imitating Scott, back when he said he never wanted to be Santa in the first place.
I am very, very sneaky, sir.
Later, Frost performs some sort of show that Lucy attends. Even though Scott and Lucy's relationship is very different now that he's no longer Santa, he asks her to go into a secret room that's filled with snow globes and break into it. Due to her love for snow globes, she agrees without a second thought. While Lucy is busy getting the snow globes, Scott creates a diversion to allow her to get there unnoticed. He sabotages Frost's entire performance while the audience just laughs. Lucy gets Scott the escape clause globe and gives it to Frost, who is confident he will never say the sentence that would activate the clause. But as I said, Scott had the recording pen of Frost saying exactly that.
You lose! Good day, sir!
As if nothing hasn't happened in the first place, we pick up where we left off before Santa accidentally got escape claused. He runs to Carol and her family to apologize about his lack of attention and promises to be more open and dedicated for the remainder of their lives. He then decides to come clean about his identity to Carol's parents, showing them the workshop and everything involved in the toy-making process, as they are absolutely marveled over everything they are seeing.
If you're Father Christmas, that means I'm Father Christmas's father-in-law.
By the way, I don't know if you remember, but in this timeline, Jack Frost froze Lucy's parents and locked her inside a closet. Thankfully, one of the elves got them out, but Laura and Neil are still very much frozen. In order to unfreeze them, they need Mr. Frost's help, who is obviously unwilling to do it, especially since it would mean that he has to warm his heart. As Frost says this, Santa remembers that Lucy's hugs are very special and powerful, so he does the next logical thing. He tells Lucy to hug Frost, which surprisingly makes him completely turn to mush, as he raves completely nonsense due to the warmth of her embrace.
I feel so tropical. Miguel! Dos platos de nachos, por favor.
Of course, he immediately defrosts Lucy's parents, and everyone is happy once again. Oh, and hopefully you haven't forgotten that Carol was pregnant, because she gives birth only a second after this whole thing happens. We return back to the moment the film started, where she is telling the kids about her life with Santa, as the man himself emerges in the room, holding the baby she delivered not too long ago. Aww. The end. And that's all for today. Make sure to stay tuned, as we'll be doing more Christmas movies for the whole month. In the meantime, let me know in the comments what you want for Christmas, and I'll deliver it to you if you subscribe. Nah, just kidding. But subscribe anyways. Merry Christmas and see you next time!